You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that is honest, reveals the facts, truth, and statistics, and does not mess around. Follow me, Taylor Phillips, on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Email me at TaylorGatorPhillips14@yahoo.com. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313, and go to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join our Facebook group with the same name. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast on Spreaker is also available on iHeartRadio and SoundCloud. Also a subsidiary of Sports Radio Detroit, thus available on iTunes and Podbean. This podcast is particularly not for entertainment purposes, and the views expressed by the host of this podcast are opinion-based. However, they do not come without facts, research, statistics, and truth, whether other people like it or not, and no matter how harsh or complicated it may be. This is the Michigan Sports Truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
Hey there, Michigan sports fanatics, and welcome to the Michigan Sports Truth, episode 250 on Spreaker. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Ed Smith. And Ed, we have reached the milestone. Another milestone, that is.
Indeed, we have, Taylor. It seems like it's only been a while since we started, but here we are already at 250 episodes. So it's an honor, definitely, to be doing these shows, giving the information and just giving the truth out to the people, as our name indicates. So I'm happy to have been a part of this journey, and let's continue on to the next step.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's shoot for 500 sometime, huh?
Why not?
Yeah. Well, today we are first going to cover National Signing Day in college football for the Michigan Wolverines and the Michigan State Spartans. We'll also recap their basketball teams, men's basketball teams for both schools, especially MSU hammering Nebraska just last Thursday night on the road in Lincoln at the University of Nebraska. And then we'll transition to my school, the Central Michigan Chippewas, and then pro basketball, the Pistons, after losing two straight in Miami and Boston, at least. And then finally snapping the Pelicans' 8-game winning streak against the Pistons with a 118-98 win at the Palace over those pesky birds. We'll preview their upcoming schedule, and then got some news about Aron Baynes and his option for next season. Then we'll recap the lowly Detroit Red Wings and ESPN analysts, most of them in an article out of a few, jumping ship to the Cell Train, aboard the Cell Train for Detroit's NHL hockey team that had historically won 11 Stanley Cups, and 4 of them during the salary cap era in our lifetime, which is understandable, but does not compare to today's Red Wings, which are pretty much the complete opposite of the Red Wings of old.
Dead Wings 2.0, basically.
Yeah, definitely, yep. So, let's go ahead and kick it off right now.
Touchdown, Michigan!
The Michigan Wolverines in National Signing Day signed wide receivers Nico Collins and Oliver Martin and defensive tackle Aubrey Solomon. So, wide receivers Nico Collins and Oliver Martin can either one of them can be a great replacement for senior tight end Jake Budd. They're both wide receivers, but one of them at least can play tight end.
Well, in terms of for this specific group, it was very essential that the Michigan got as many wideout recruits as they needed because, like you mentioned, not only Jake Butt was leaving, also Amar Darbo, J.U. Chesson, those were three quality receiving weapons between both wideouts and tight ends that was going to be leaving after their senior season. So you needed to restock on those spots as soon as possible. So between Nico Collins and between even, like you mentioned, Alvin Martin, Tariq Black also, and another highly recruited prospect right from Detroit, Donovan Peoples-Jones. I believe he attends Cass Tech. So I scored out another one for the Cass Tech to Michigan pipeline. So I definitely did a good job of mixing in those recruits. Plus, some of the guys they already got in, like the Eddie McDooms or the Chris Evans guys, those speedsters, those slot guys who can really utilize their speed on certain underneath route plays or whatnot. It may not be instant, but I think after a while it'll be a great replacement to the receiving core that we had the past couple of seasons. So very essential for Michigan to take care of that side of the ball in terms of their offense because what was really their main concern for helping replace the talent offense wasn't so much on the running backs or even tight ends because like I said, I think they got a couple of tight ends, one of them being Ty Wheatley Jr. And they also got some good offensive linemen as well, still waiting in the wings, and even they added one with Cesar Ruiz, a highly recruited center. So that was good for the offensive side of the ball between that and their wideouts. The main thing here, in my opinion, what they need to do is how can they get some good defensive guys because they're losing a shit ton of players on defense next year. They only have, at the moment, one returning starter. So it seems how are they going to do that? I figured maybe if you're going to get a couple cornerbacks, we'll see, or you shore up on your defensive line and make that your supreme strength. And they definitely took care of the defensive line at the very least by adding Aubrey Solomon from Lee County, Georgia. Solomon is a consensus 5-star, top 5 recruit, specifically at defensive tackle. It's a slam dunk home run pickup for Michigan. It was a little bit tricky because there was a little bit of a journey, a little bit of odyssey in and of itself. Solomon saying he was committing to Michigan, then decommitting over the summer. Testing out dealers from both Alabama and his hometown Bulldogs. But in the end, whether the persuasion of Harbaugh or his mother liking the academics way to wind up in Michigan, or in fact it was Jim Harbaugh and his family going go-karting. Either way, Michigan got their guy, and I'm very excited to see in the near future a defensive line that features both Rashawn Gary and Aubrey Solomon on the line. It's a scary sight. Gary can be, because both guys can have great penetrating ability, especially Solomon. I've looked at some tape. The kid is an absolute bull in a china shop, if you want to call it that. He's athletic enough with his body where you can substitute him on certain packages so he can play with the defensive line. Now, primarily, he's your D tackle. But I could see, over the course of his time, he either makes a transition or just, switches in between certain plays. He'll be D tackle one play, D in another, because he has the ability to shed blockers. That's something that you need as a defensive end in terms of trying to get after the quarterback. But his penetration right up at the front of the line, right in the trenches, is quite astonishing. It reminds me a little bit of an Dominican Sue / Robert Kimbichi type of thing. But he's still young, so it's more raw ability than anything that needs to be sharpened and honed in a certain tone and certain way. But with his coaching staff behind him, what else can go wrong if you want to call it that? So after everything, when you factor in the additions on the defensive line, factor in the additions with your wide receiving core, Michigan once again with a top 10 recruiting class, finishing I believe 6th in the nation according to ESPN at least. And while we're on that topic briefly, it seemed like the Big Ten, it's for this recruiting for this signing day, was Michigan, Ohio State, and everybody else. Penn State was hanging around a little bit, 17. MSU, not having a solid year. They actually ranked just outside of the top 30. And that has a couple factors. Obviously, you're coming off a 3-9 season, and B, you got Jim Harbaugh breathing down your neck. So some turnover was going to transpire anyway regarding how Michigan and Michigan State was going to be racking up the recruits. So that didn't surprise me too much. This should not be seen as a oh wow, another poor moment for Sparty, because they can capitalize. They can make They can use these lemons to make great lemonade. I mean, they've taken 2 stars like Connor Cook and made them into and turned them into school legends. So I'm not, throwing more dirt on MSU or kicking them when they're down. Just acknowledging where they're at right now, and while also leaving the door open to say, hey, things could be better in the near future. But back to Michigan, one thing I looked at via ESPN, they mentioned of how, and now Harbaugh's 3 years since he's arrived, this will be his 3rd signing day, he has garnered more recruits from SEC schools, Deep South, Georgia, Bama, Mississippi, that sort of thing. He's garnered more of those on his 3 signing days than it was from the previous 9 signing days combined for Michigan. In the 9 signing days before Harbaugh, Michigan only got 16 of those type of recruits combined. Harbaugh has gotten at least 17 in just 3. So the message is quite simple. We're under the Jim Harbaugh regime, spreading out and looking after, you're going to use our brand to scour and scout, not just from any certain area, but just from all over. But you're going to target those other areas that teams like Alabama and LSU and Florida State have constantly gotten, top recruiting classes, and that have remained near the top of the pinnacle of college football world over the past decade or so, because what? They've gotten great players from the South. So Michigan is trying to put a chink in that armor, so to speak, as well as using the New Jersey pipeline, amongst other factors and scenarios. It's led to a reason why, once again, another top 10 recruiting class for Harbaugh and company.
Definitely, and those three key players that they just signed can maybe help this Michigan football team thrive through the end when they play the Ohio State Buckeyes in the end of the regular season in 2017.
Always wishful thinking.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So another topic to discuss in terms of Michigan football, cornerback Jeremy Clark was denied his 6th year of eligibility, and that was a week ago. That was a week ago. He just recently transferred to the UNLV Rebels, so the Wolverines are going to miss him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it would have been a perfect scenario to keep Jeremy, because you would have at least gotten another returning defensive starter, and it's someone who knows his way around that secondary. But I'm sure, given the situation where it's at, Jeremy obviously still wanted to play, and he figured, hey, if I'm not going to get it here, if I'm not going to be allowed to get it in Michigan, let me use this loophole, which is the grad transfer rule, essentially. Get at least one more year, go to another school. Get my scouts and other NFL folks looking at my tape, looking at me, see how I do, and get my numbers up, so that when come 2018, I'll be a good first, second round draft pick prospect. So I understand the reasoning. I fully throw my support high to 100%, and I wish Jeremy the best of luck.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So we're gonna real quick transition to Michigan State football.
Touchdown, MSU!
The Spartans have flipped 3-star wide receiver C.J. Hayes from the Purdue Boilermakers and signed Iraq Escabi and Dearborn offensive tackle Mustafa Khalifa. So, any analysis on these?
Like I said, it's going to be a little of a building block year. Fans shouldn't be expecting that immediate turnaround from, we're going to go from 3-9 to 9-3. No, it's going to be hard to do when you have Michigan and Ohio State on your schedule and in your division. that you just don't have the same adequate amount of NFL ready talent as you did just a mere couple of years ago. So it's going to take time to nurture and build that up to the point where, hey, you can make some noise in the season and get at least 9, if not 10 wins or so. Little flipping recruits like this, it's little things that helps. It doesn't, like I said, there's not much you can do with a 32nd ranked recruiting class, but it's not bottom of the barrel here. There's some room to work with. So again, you use that as one of your foundations, your breaking ground, your building point. I would recommend it. I would say that would be a wise scenario and an optimistic one for Michigan State fans to pay attention to for this upcoming season.
Also, defensive end Donovan Winter, who was going to sign with the green and white, was actually arrested and therefore unable to sign with the Michigan State Spartans. So you just hate to see that happen.
Yikes. Sucks for him, and it definitely sucks to see from a Michigan State standpoint. That was probably obviously one of the last things you would expect to see, expect to have happen to you on National Signing Day. So if they find another recruit to try to replace him or what, I wish them best of luck for that.
Yep. All right, so that is our College Football National Signing Day recap. Now we go to college basketball.
For 3, yes, sir.
Well, those Michigan Wolverines kept it close in the first half at Breslin Center the past Sunday, but it kind of slipped away from them, and the Spartans beat them 70-62 in East Lansing. Too many turnovers, and like you mentioned, the home crowd also chipping in. Not entirely, but partially. Just MSU proved to be the better team in that contest.
The better team and the more fundamentally sound team. Okay, this was a team that one second, having some slight connection problems. This was a team, obviously, that knew itself well more than anything else. Was using great emphasis on teamwork and defense, as was evident by the 8 steals that they garnered in terms of leading up to Michigan 13 total turnovers. 8 of those were steals for Michigan State, and 3 of those alone were committed, I believe, by Miles Bridges. This was Bridges' first display, his showcase in his rivalry, and he more than lived up to his billing. He had, I believe, a double-double, 15 points, 13 rebounds, in addition to his 3 steals. Completely took over the game. Was essentially the defining, the X factor in this game, between terms of how this game is going to win. And slight correction, that was 15 points, 13 rebounds, if I was mistaken earlier. He also got good help from his teammate, fellow freshman Nick Ward. Perfect from the field, only missed 1 free throw, but finished with a solid 13 points. And in terms of getting help off the bench, Cassius Wilson, now in large part due to him getting to the line 11 times, but still he cashed in on those, sinking 10 of 11. He finished with 16 points. So with Cassius Winston, it was more interesting to note that Winston, with his 16 points, he outscored the Michigan bench by himself. Only 2 players on Michigan's bench scored that whole damn game. Duncan Robinson with 8, Ogden Al with 7. That's 15 points compared to 16 for Winston. So in terms of getting help from your bench, it was clearly not a productive one for Michigan in that standpoint. And now that does speak to, in terms of the depth, and that's not necessarily the job of Michigan State minus that defensively. I think it just speaks to where Michigan, talent-wise, and how deep they are in terms of finding out depth and good backup/role players, where it leads to the overall picture. Because, like I said, there's only 2 dudes you can name from that seems to be quality bench time. That's now our option, and that's a problem, because that's going to lead to more minutes and more pressure pressure being put on your starters, i.e. DJ Wilson, who, he's a freshman, but he played 36 minutes, my God. So that kind of explains why he only finished with 8 points. Bit of a disappointing day for him, but again, you can't expect too much from him. However, you should be expecting more out of seniors like Zach Irvin, who was, once again, an utter, complete fucking disappointment, finishing with, brace yourself, folks, 0 points. Yes, 0.0. Completely horrible. Didn't make a fucking shot. Only had, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. Just completely pathetic. It seemed like Derek Walton and Morris Wagner were the only 2 dudes that showed up at all for Michigan today. Walton getting in his 24 points, his 5 assists, and 9 rebounds, which always, there's one thing about Derek Walton that always astonishes me is how, even though he's a point guard, he somehow finds himself getting all these rebounds, and on certain nights, is the leading rebounder for the team. In fact, listen, all those 9 rebounds, 3 of those were the offensive variety. So, when you have your point guard, it's a good thing, but also a bad thing, too, because you're not getting much help from either your front court or one of your wings in terms of getting some solid rebounds. Like I mentioned before, with Zach Irvin only getting 2 rebounds, that's not going to cut it if you want to be a wing player. Mohamed Ali Abdul-Rahman, 5 points, disappointing from him as well. Now, he did only play 15 minutes, whereas Duncan Robinson got more of his lion's share, so maybe if you give it, take those 10 minutes away from Robinson, give that to Abdul-Rahman, maybe he gets going, gets you some more points, and helps turn the tide with it, but still, that deuce egg from Zach Irvin was a big reason why Michigan was very stagnant in their offense. Not to mention multiple times in the game when they went on scoring droughts for at least 4 minutes or more, which allowed Michigan State to either come back or add to their lead. In fact, they went through 2 of those scoring droughts in the first half, which allowed Michigan State to build that early lead. Give them credit for showing toughness and fighting back and not quitting and tagging in early and getting blown out by 30. But when you have only 2 players, 2 starters, being the only guys that showed up to play, what else can you do against a team that is more cohesive and much more has more depth in terms of what they have in Michigan State? So I told you last week that even though I would have loved to see Michigan win, I just didn't see it happening. You picked the Wolverines anyway, and my gut feeling proved to be right in this case.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I just Michigan is like still winless on the road. 0-6 now on the road. They can't overcome any opposing home crowd. They're a bunch of pussies right now. No offense.
Oh God, but you're absolutely right.
That's the reason why you prove your case.
I mean, not to mention the fact that once again, Michigan it was live by the 3, die by the 3. They made 7 out of 26 3-pointers the whole damn game. Yeah, that was not going to help matters either in terms of going out in total 19 of 56. So that's in terms of that's under 40% obviously on your 2-pointers and under 30% on your 3-pointers. Not a very good shooting percentage average. Whereas contrast that with Michigan State, my goodness, making over half their shots from the field total in terms of percentage-wise and doing 45% from 3. So between second chance points, nailing threes, and of course those turnovers, those were big dividends in determining the outcome of this game.
And we'll get to the Spartans just one short moment, but the Wolverines will have to now recover as they go back home tomorrow, which is Saturday, at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN2 when they welcome their other arch rival, the Ohio State Buckeyes, the border rivalry, at Chrysler Center, and then the rematch between the Spartans and the Wolverines from Chrysler Center Tuesday at 9 on ESPN before the Wolverines hit the road Sunday at Assembly Hall in Bloomington, Indiana on February 12th at 1 on CBS. But the Ohio State Buckeyes, not quite as good as the Michigan State Spartans are right now, although they beat them earlier at Value City Arena in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, not as stacked, but they were able to give Michigan State fits. So for Michigan, it comes down to can you not be so intimidated in the post? You're going to need Moritz Wagner to not only be showing out, but he's going to need help from DJ Wilson. He's going to need Mark Denal to be more productive off the bench. You need your bigs between those guys and Denal off the bench to be as productive as possible, because Zach Irvin, I'll just say it, I'm just telling out the days until he plays his game so he can get the hell out of my school. I'm so done with wanting him to be an offensive production productive player for the offense when clearly it's just not there. So I'm just waiting until he's finally done and gone.
Zach Irvin, you mean?
Yes, Zach Irvin, that is correct.
Yeah, I recall. Well, speaking of the... we'll scout the Indiana Hoosiers in our next episode, but the Spartans, after their win over Michigan,
Valentine for the win!
They went into Lincoln, Nebraska, and torched the Cornhuskers 72-61 just last Thursday night. They outshot Nebraska unanimously from three-point range, 64.7% to 25.0%.
Are you kidding me with this?
Holy shit.
Oh. Miles Bridges once again with another strong game with 16 points. That helped also.
Yep, that's true. And despite the turnover battle, which Nebraska barely won 15-13 in favor of MSU, the Spartans overcame adversity, and they overcame all adversity, and they started maturing up, manning up, especially from underneath the post, and they just took full control. The first 10 minutes of the first half was pretty edgy, but then the Spartans started pulling away since then, and led 30-21 at halftime, I think.
It was 30-26, and then they just kept on their pace.
26, yeah.
By making their threes, that absurdly high shooting percentage, as you mentioned. Another key variable, Taylor, was the fact that MSU's bench outscored Nebraska's by a margin of 31-9. That's a .22 plus 22 advantage for Michigan State in the bench run. That was a big determining factor in the score, the final score of the game. You had Alvin Ellis with 11, Nick Warden and Winston, the aforementioned Winston, both guys having 10 apiece. Just guys you wouldn't expect. Kenny Goings, he had 10 points. So again, this was a much more collaborative effort, much more fundamentally sound team that we're seeing from Michigan State than we're seeing right now in Michigan. It just shows. It just shows in leaps and bounds.
So the Spartans have off until Tuesday night at 9 on ESPN, the rematch in Ann Arbor. The Spartans have another road test coming up. It's harder than the one in Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska, that is. How can the Spartans overcome the maize and blue home crowd for your team?
Well, I'll be honest. I think they had the far better home crowd advantage at playing in front of Breslin. So to them, it'll be a bit of a step down playing in front of the Chrysler Center crowd. That's just my observation. And also, you're going to need more of the same effort. Miles Bridges needs to be a big part of this game. Warren, Winston, and Ellis and Goins, you need contributing. You need the contributions from those same players that you've seen over the past two games. You need to show up again in this potential game right here, and keep up the turnovers. That was how Michigan State was able to get that early lead on Michigan and keep Michigan from on those scoring drops, because turnovers and great defense is going to force bad shots, and use that to your advantage. You should be on your way to another victory. So it wouldn't surprise me to see MSU get the sweep. Now, Michigan, obviously, if they get the home win against here, boost up morale for the rest of the season, make fans like me feel happy. Welcome sight. But things going to happen, like I said, unless Zach Irvin somehow gets possessed with the spirit of what we saw Tim Hardaway Jr. do against the Rockets last night, I highly doubt it.
Yeah, definitely. So, the Spartans return home after that and play the Iowa Hawkeyes a week from tomorrow. That's Saturday, February 11th at 6 on BTN. The Iowa Hawkeyes are another juggernaut team, but they can even be good on the road, Ed.
Yes, they will. And for Michigan State, this is a very challenging team. This is their meat and potatoes type of the schedule as well. It's not just Michigan facing a daunting task as well either. So for Michigan State, if they want to use this, they got to use these 2 wins to keep up their momentum. Because, like I said, they're only 2.5 games out of the conference lead. Maryland and Wisconsin have been outstanding this season. Both only have 1 lone defeat in conference play. So in terms of trying to get over that hump, facing those type of players, you need to win your rivalry games. You need to beat Michigans and your Iowas and your Ohio States. And when you have games like Maryland and Wisconsin coming right up near the tail end of your season, that could be the the difference between you winning a conference title in the regular season or not. So it's very imperative that Michigan State gets some of these early wins out of the way to keep up their momentum as they head toward this possible collision course with Wisconsin and Maryland, respectively.
Definitely. So we're gonna scout the Iowa Hawkeyes even further on our next episode, 251 on Spreaker. My Central Michigan Chippewas went into Kent State and beat the Golden Flashes in overtime, 105-98, despite Jimmy Hall tying it up with 2.4 seconds left. That was on an early Saturday afternoon. Tip-off was at noon on ESPN 3. Marcus Keene racked up another bunch of points, 41 to be exact. And then they went into Buffalo and lost to the Bulls, 101-91. I don't know how the hell they did that, but they must have lacked defense somehow. But at least they get an easy game at home against their arch rival, the Western Michigan Broncos, who are 7-14. Friday at 6:30 on CBS Sports Network. I know it's a rivalry game, but I got to go with analytics. I think CMU has more powerful offense with Marcus Keene and Braylon Rayson. They can outscore Thomas Weiler and company and use their home crowd as well. And then they host those Buffalo Bulls on Tuesday, February 14th at 7. It's a revenge game and a redemption game as well because CMU, I think, screwed the pooch on this past Tuesday at they're Tuesday this upcoming Tuesday at the 13-7 Ohio Bobcats at 7. Then Saturday, February 11th at the 9-13 Miami Ohio Redhawks. CMU has one chance of redemption already, but they got a tough task against those Bobcats this upcoming Tuesday. In Athens, Ohio, against those Bobcats. Then after the Redhawks game, they're back home against the Bulls in a revenge game on Valentine's Day, Tuesday the 14th at 7. So the defense had better shape up or ship out. Now we transition to the Pistons.
Left sideline, 3, and he answers.
Well, the Pistons lacked defense and lost to the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics. 116-103 the past Saturday in South Beach at American Airlines Arena, and then at TD Bankworth Garden on a Monday on TNT at 8 o'clock tip-off time. Strange one. 113-109 to the Celtics. Still leaving shooters wide open from three-point range, but give the Celtics credit for using screens on other three-point attempts, which most of them which they hit as well, but the Pistons offense just couldn't keep up because their defense still was somehow unable to do their job and execute.
Very true, but the offense did manage to score 109 points. It was, I think, really the key here was Isaiah Thomas for the Celtics. He's making the All-Star team this year for a reason. He's come absolutely on fire with his scoring. I think going into the game, he is averaged 32.9 points per game in the month of January, heading into that matchup. So he certainly capped off his month in grand fashion. Had a 41-point outing. They needed every single last one of those 41 points, including the 24 that he scored in the fourth. And I can't really feel too bad about what he did in the Pistons because he's done it to everybody else, as evidenced by his numbers and his averages throughout that month. So while you can't feel too bad about it because that's one of the best young scorers in the game right now, you would think, hey, you had some time to study tape on him. You still let him take over. That's a lack of execution on your part that needs to be addressed here. So bad loss from that standpoint, and also, like you mentioned, this was another back-to-back mini losing streak because they just lost their previous game to the Miami Heat by allowing players. Now, remember when they got that win on New Year's Day? I think that was mostly due to the reason that players like Goran Dragic, like Goran Dragic and Hassan Whiteside were not playing on that day, on that meeting on New Year's Day, rather. But in this one, of course, they had their starters, and that definitely proved to be the difference. I mean, Dragic with 23, even Wayne Ellington with 19 points. It was just the Pistons just couldn't really find a way. Like I said, their defense has been killing them. I don't know what has been done or what needs to be done. It was just they're getting offense. They're finally getting some more offensive production. But in terms of how it affects their defense, it's still nowhere near where it should be. So I know Stan Van Gundy keeps saying, we're not thinking or focusing on making any large changes, but you got to do something where your defense is constantly getting shredded the way it has been right now. Now I give them credit for getting the win against the Pelicans, but that's against the Pelicans. I need to see you do it against teams like Miami, like Boston, like the Hornets, on a more regular, consistent basis. If you want to try to contend for playoff spot this year, you can't keep coming up short and shit in bed in some of these high-profile games against contending teams in the East.
Yeah, they won that game at home against the Pelicans, 118-98. They outscored the Pelicans, I believe, 37-12. Let me recall here. Going to ESPN.com. Yeah, okay, I got it. Yeah, 38 points, a new career high.
Uh-huh.
And even Aron Baynes stepped up. He got 8 points. Usually he sucks, but at some points in this game, you got to step up. 35-17 was the exact outscoring by the Pistons over the Pelicans in the fourth quarter. The first three quarters were close, but the Pistons turned it up after 3 quarters of play, and they put the Pelicans away and beat them by 20. When the Pelicans now have a pretty significant losing record, now 19-31, 6-17 on the road. Pistons now improved to 22-27. They are now in 9th place in the Eastern Conference and 4th place in the Central Division yet, but they're climbing up there.
I mean, they're right there. They're within, they're literally within striking distance. They're only a half game out of that 8th spot that's currently occupied by Charlotte. So it's not too bleak for your playoff hopes, but you have better goals in terms of, hey, see if you can win a playoff game, if not a playoff series, because if you get 8 or 7 again, you're likely going up against, obviously you're probably more likely going up against the Cleveland Cavaliers if you're 8th. If you're the 8th seed, and hello, another sweep back-to-back years. That's not the type of progress I want to see. So I was hoping, knowing that they're going to have their full roster around him, they would maybe try to aim for 6 seed. I told myself trying not to be too facetious and hoping for a high enough seed. Between Reggie Jackson getting hurt and then when he comes back, obvious chemistry issues coming about as a result. The progress has not gone as swiftly or as a steady enough pace, the right pace as those might have wanted it. But like you mentioned, Taylor, it's they're still right there. They've made a bit of a climb. It's not as bad as it was, last month or so. Like I said, in that December stretch where they looked god awful. But it's far more than where they need to be right now. So they need to definitely focus on even game by game or quarter by quarter, improve. If it means making a roster spot, roster change, so be it. But you got to find ways to keep up your own momentum going so that you won't be seen as one of the most disappointing teams in the league going from making playoffs one year to missing it the very next.
Pistons with a much-needed win over the Pelicans. They snapped an 8-game losing streak against those Pelicans. Been a long time coming. So the Pistons end their short 2-game homestand when the Minnesota Timberwolves at 19-30 come into town and try to get some revenge on the Pistons. But the Pistons in their last meeting in Minnesota, in Minneapolis at Target Center, they crushed the Timberwolves 117-90 on December 9th on a Friday, and that's just total annihilation. That I don't even know if it woke up the Timberwolves or just demoralized them, because the Pistons just came out to Target Center and brought their A game, regardless of all the mishaps that they made. And then the Indiana Pacers welcome them into Bankers Life Fieldhouse Saturday at 7. Going to be a tough divisional game there in this division rivalry, an old NBA rivalry in the Eastern Conference. Then they're home against the Philadelphia 76ers on Monday at 7:30. They are 18-31. Just a little bit worse than the Timberwolves and the Pelicans. Then they're home against the Lakers on Wednesday at 7:30. They beat them 112, I think 115 to I can't remember the score.
They beat them by 5 in their last outing.
102-97.
The West Coast road trip, 102-97.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then finally, they wrap up their 3-game homestand after Indiana with the San Antonio Spurs a week from tonight, Friday, February 10th at 7:30 against the San Antonio Spurs, 37-11. We'll scout them next week. But the Timberwolves, another easy team to beat. Once again, the Pistons shouldn't have any problem on their own home court.
On home court is obviously is a good factor for them. You try to contain Karl Anthony Towns as much as possible, one of the best young players in the league. Not only can he provide and get you usual productive numbers for a big man at the center spot, but you can spot out from time to time and drain a jump shot, drain a couple threes for you. So you got to look out for that. You need to look out for other young studs like Zach LaVine and Andrew Wiggins that they have on their squad, and even their point guard Chris Dunn, who could be a real up-and-comer. He came off that national championship with Villanova. He fell to the right enough spot in the draft where Minnesota swooped him up. And so they're trying to wing him in, but that's a good addition, a good young talent to add to a team already blossoming with young talents. So obviously there's going to be growing pains, but I would be a bit fearful of them a few years from now, just not at this very moment. So this should be a winnable game for them, especially at home. Indiana's tricky, but after that, you have another winnable game against Philly that kickstarts your 3-game homestand. You got to win against LA, because if you don't, you're most likely staring down another L in the form of the Spurs. So you'll try, you got to make these home games count as much as possible, especially when you got All-Star break nearing very soon.
I want to go back a little bit to the Pelicans recap. The Pistons allowed 23 points in the first half to Anthony Davis, but then they held him to just 8 in the second half. But now the Pistons still got to keep up their defense against those Timberwolves, like they held the Pelicans to under points, 98 to be exact, scoring a total of over 100 points each of the last 3 games. But let's hope they keep that up. Pistons still shouldn't have a problem, but Karl Anthony Towns is a player to watch along with Ricky Rubio. Although he, as we mentioned, he has hit a career low 7.9 points per game. He's now got over 8 assists per game, and like you mentioned last week, he's a facilitator in which what we discuss as the trade talk involving him and Reggie Jackson, and Stan Van Gundy whispered into Reggie Jackson's ear later on a Saturday. Saturday night, quote, we're not trading you to the Timberwolves for Ricky Rubio. That's simply because the Pistons just needed more offensive power, not just assists, but points per game. That's the most important part. The assists.
Yeah, well, if you want to go that route, that option, if that's the case, go in Eric Bledsoe from Phoenix. See how that works out.
Yeah, definitely.
If you still want to go down that route.
Uh-huh. Then the Pacers are 26-22. Pistons are going to have their hands full in Indianapolis. That tips off at 7:30 at Indiana on probably Fox Sports Detroit, because tonight's game, Friday night's game against the Timberwolves, is on Fox Sports Detroit. Actually, the Indiana game's on Fox Sports Detroit Plus. But Pistons have better be ready for their division rivalry game.
Let's hope so.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Now to their latest article, which popped up last night or earlier this week, whichever day. There was a report on BasketballInsiders.com saying that Aron Baynes will report. Aron Baynes will, their center, decline his $6.5 million option for the 2017-2018 regular season, which is next season. And ESPN.com has recently reported that Aron Baynes has now declined that report because he said that he hasn't determined anything yet on his option yet. So still no word on his option. We may have to wait until some point later on, maybe during the off season, possibly.
Well, I have a suggestion that might influence his decision. Play Boban more. That'll get his ass out of town.
Yeah, maybe Stan Van Gundy will finally get his head out of his ass. Pretty simple. Not much to explain there.
All right, that'll make things much more decisive with your decision, Aaron.
Yeah, maybe play a little bit more consistently when you reach another team. Otherwise, gets sent back down to the NBA Developmental League. Maybe just for a conditioning stint, not full time, but just a conditioning stint, at least. So that's all Pistons material. Now, one team left to cover, and that's the lowly Detroit Red Wings.
Oh, how lovely!
Yeah, that's true. They finished their All-Star break, NHL All-Star break now, and then over the last weekend now, and then they fall behind 2-0 in the first period of the New Jersey Devils and 4-1 the beginning of the third period, just a few minutes in, and then they crawl back in. Nick Jensen scoring his first NHL goal, and then Tomas Tatar scoring a power play goal, Brock's cheer. And then with under 2 minutes to go, and the Red Wings are trying to tie it up in crunch time. Jeff Blashill, typical Jeff Blashill, used Justin Abdelkader and Darren Helm on the power play, and of course, they did not nearly convert on that power play. They did not even help. The power play still dead last at 11.4%. Last I checked, it was 11.3 going into the All-Star break.
Yeah, I mean it's ranked 30th. It's the drizzling shit of right now of what a power play unit looks like in the NHL. The prime example was about midway through the second when the Red Wings not only had a man advantage, they had a fucking 5-on-3, and not only did it not get a single shot on net, but yet it led to Palmieri scoring an unassisted shorthand goal. How the fuck do you let that happen? That's lazy defense, horrible execution, and not having the right players out there to begin with. That's on coaching as much as it is on the players.
Yeah, definitely.
Go from a 5-on-3, don't score, don't even get a fucking shot on net, and then somebody comes right down and scores a goal on you, and they're down not one, but two dudes. Unacceptable.
Yeah, definitely. The Devils scored 2 shorthanded goals, one in the first period and the other on a second. In the second period, Palmieri finished with 2 damn goals, one of them shorthanded, and it came back to bite the Red Wings in the ass the rest of the game, even though they came back.
Oh, yes, the prototypical classic Red Wings third period comeback dick tease.
Yeah, yeah, of course they still lost in regulation. Especially typical Abdelkader and Darren Helm with long-term contracts. Ken Hahn is stuck in a big fat puddle of shit and mud combined together.
He's in a shitty, muddy limbo.
Yeah, or probably a metal box full of shit and mud, and maybe even cement unless I'm going a little bit too far. But anyway.
We're already gone far enough with shit and mud, so.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and then and so I guess that covers the recap of the Devils game. So the Red Wings are probably going to get pounded by the Islanders Friday night. That's tonight at 7:30. Then they go into Nashville and play the Predators, who blanked the Oilers 2-0 just this past last night. That puck drops at 8. Then on Tuesday, they play the Columbus Blue Jackets at 7:30. Then the Washington Capitals in Verizon Center Thursday at 7. That's a President's Trophy leading team right now.
So I could expect to see a massacre, you would think, in that one.
Yep. And then the Red Wings go to Columbus on Saturday, February 11th at 5. They're going to get torched by the Jackets power play not once but twice in 2 games, mind you. And then finally, they go to Minnesota on Sunday, February 12th at 3 on NBC and play the Minnesota Wild at XL Energy Center. All 5. That's 6 losses. 6 more losses coming up to add to their 4-game losing streak overall. And that's good for tanking.
Yeah, I'm just really counting down the game. It's like, we got 32 more to go. Good. Once we get down to 30 mark, I'd be feeling a little bit up the step of relief ladder. Like, hey, we're up there. My goodness, keep on the losing. We'll be in perfect shape. Because with how Ken Hahn has done in terms of free agency, he's been so disastrous. Your best hope would be is to find your own next superstar of your own through the draft. Whether it be a Nolan Smith or whatever. You need your own Austin Matthews. You need your own Connor McDavid out there to help lead you into the new era, especially when you're getting ready to enter a new building. That's essentially a start of your new era right there. Dotson's gone. Zetterberg, I'm sure, is coming near the end soon. So you got to be ready. Keep your current generation ready, because there are your future torchbearers for the next generation coming up soon.
That's true. Gotta keep young players like Athanasiou, Mantha, Sproul, Jensen, Marchenko, and even Larkin and Xavier Ouellette. And Mrazek, too. So, that's all the Red Wings material. Not much to explain in that department either. So, that leaves us with one thing and one thing only, and that is the 5-question segment. Are you ready, Ed?
As ready as you are.
I'm sorry. I forgot one thing. ESPN analysts. I apologize for almost forgetting.
Take your time.
Yep. ESPN analysts weigh in on the Red Wings. Tough decision. Time for the Red Wings to make some hard decisions in the morning roundtable just yesterday. That was posted just yesterday on ESPN.com. Craig Custance says it's time to sell. There's going to be a temptation to give this current group every minute of opportunity to get back in the playoff race and keep the playoff streak alive. But the better move would be to join the sellers while it's still such a strong seller's market. The Red Wings have 3 goalies, Howard, Mrazek, and Coro. Jimmy Howard, Peter Mrazek, and Jared Coro. They could move one of them, possibly Jimmy Howard, because there have been plenty of trade rumors where they can trade Jimmy Howard to another team for a couple draft picks. They also have winger Thomas Vanek, who absolutely should be traded, even if the Red Wings want to bring him back again in the summer. Brendan Smith is a strong skating defenseman who has the skill to play in a top 4. With his contract expiring, he should be moved. Defenseman Mike Green could be valuable to a contender too if teams don't mind the term left on his contract. Steve Ott, here's a bullshit statement. Steve Ott brings sandpaper and a strong veteran presence in the dressing room. Get the fuck out. He's not even nearly a fucking captain, you stupid son of a bitch.
You stupid idiot.
Yeah.
As Jericho would say.
Yeah, definitely.
Shut up, you idiot. What? Oh.
And then, finally, the Red Wings shouldn't have trouble moving players once they're ready to go down that path. Pierre LeBrun, a whole ton of shit spewed out of his mouth and his fingers as well. A popular response to this question, I'll forget it. Second, the Red Wings could still make the playoffs. Sure, I agree this roster obviously isn't good enough, but is there a Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews franchise player available to build around in the next 3 years? Likely not. So I think all you can do if you're GM Ken Holland is replace some parts with younger ones bit by bit. That part I agree, but with a new rink next season, also try to stay competitive. Oh, that's just normal, but the Red Wings are still going to tank anyway.
Yeah, it's just not a realistic scenario in my view because, like Pierre mentioned, he even said himself in his own opening salvo, this is not a talented enough team, and he's right. So you can't really expect a team that's not that talented enough to try and overachieve their best ability and get you a lame duck, lame dick playoff spot only to get brushed down the first fucking round again.
Yeah, before that, for starters, June's draft pool is not as strong as recent years, so there's very little reason to tank this season, unless you want to go for a top draft pick, in which I agree with.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so there is actually a bigger reason for us than Pierre LeBrun thinks for the Red Wings to tank. And then Scott Burnside reports it's time to find out whether there's another generation to step into the breach in Detroit. Datsuk is gone, and there's another, and it's time for Zetterberg and Cronwall to go too. The Green experiment, one that never made a ton of sense, should end as soon as possible too. Easier said than done, and not suggesting it's something that happens overnight. But history has shown that the Red Wings can make wide-ranging changes in personnel, maybe in the front office or the coaching staff, and never miss a beat. And so we'll see if GM Ken Holland has any magic left in his bag of tricks. I say he has none, evidently.
No.
So in terms of signing even more veterans, or at least one more or two, whatever. But Joe McDonald, they missed They missed Datsuk, who returned home to Russia to play in the KHL. Nielsen, Vanek, and Ott paid dividends in each of their respective roles, but the lack of superstars in their prime time and with a defensive unit that's still a work in progress, the Red Wings have struggled. But this part right here, Nielsen, Vanek, and Ott paying dividends, that's not true.
Ah, shut up.
Especially Ott.
What? Oh.
Yeah, Steve Ott. They are not even aware of Ott's stats, and Steve Ott is even on the long-term injury reserve, and that's no wonder he hasn't played in a long time. He's got to retire. Ken Holland should not have signed Ott to that one-year deal to prevent Matha from being called up. But Matha, before the middle of the season, maybe in November or December, the middle of November actually, on the first day of deer season, Matha was called up, and since then, he stayed up, and he was gelling, baby. If you look at not only look at his AHL stats, but the stats in the NHL with the Wings too. Corey Pronman says, sell and rebuild. Of course, the issue to me is more on the likelihood of success, which is very little. The Red Wings have a decent, albeit not outstanding, farm system. Evgeny Svechnikov, Vili Sarjarvi, Joe Hicketts, Dennis Chalowski, Tyler Bertuzzi are all fine to very good prospects, but none of them are game changers. Oh, at least not yet. Maybe still in the AHL, just not quite in the NHL. They haven't shown much in the NHL quite yet. They need more development. They have a couple good, albeit not outstanding players. Dylan Larkin, notwithstanding with the big team, there's a reasonable path forward, given their young depth. Doesn't take 5 years to become a good team again, but they need another foundational piece or two. Larkin is as evident you don't always need a top 3 pick. However, the odds are against a full revival of the organization by 2019, given how hard finding these foundational pieces are. This could require the kinds of patience Red Wing fans haven't had to exhibit since before the Yzerman years. So he's comparing Red Wings, the Dead Wings of old back in the early 80s to the Dead Wings 2.0 of the present. And finally, Rob Volman, ever since Lidstrom retired 5 years ago, Detroit's blue line has been due for an overhaul. If the Red Wings simply wait for the $20 million in overpriced contracts for their current top 4 to expire, and for their solid organizational strength to start providing effective replacements, then it could be several seasons before they are truly competitive again. That's why the organization's top priority should be finding ways to accelerate the departure of their old defensemen, such as Brendan Smith, Nicholas Kronwall, and Jonathan Eriksson. Eriksson's no-trade clause should be up either soon or in a year or two, while seeking to acquire high-value replacements, even at the cost of some other great young players up front. So that's all the material in that article. So at least a couple people don't even know what the hell they're talking about, but most of them in this article have jumped ship to the sell train for the Detroit Red Wings, and it's starting to catch on a little bit. Wouldn't you say?
Little by little, I would agree. So it's nice to see some, I guess you could say, some folks waking up to smell the coffee, so to speak.
Yeah. So now it's time for 5 questions. Sorry for jumping the gun. Are you ready yet?
More ready than you are, Taylor. So we're going to let it rip.
It's time for 5 questions on the Michigan Sports Truth.
Question number 1. Which university in the state of Michigan signed the better players, the Wolverines or the Spartans? Possibly
What I'm thinking has to be Michigan, not just the class rankings, but just some of the players itself. Like you mentioned before with Solomon, I mentioned with Peoples, with DPJ as a wide receiver, Donovan Peoples-Jones. between the wideout core and strengthening their defense, you can have asked for almost. It's neck and neck in terms of which was the better recruiting class last year or this year, but it was a needed result in terms of helping replace or essentially reload talent that you're going to be missing from last year as opposed to this year. So my answer obviously has to be Michigan.
Yep.
Next question.
Question number 2, how does the Wolverines basketball team recover from their loss at Michigan State this past Sunday?
Well, it's simple. They need better production from guys like Zach Irvin to get their head out their ass and not be a essential black hole in the offensive production that this team needs. Secondly, they need more production from their bench. That's another thing, too. You can't just be Denal and Duncan Robinson and nobody else shows up. That's pathetic and beyond disappointing. You need to give your starters a little bit of a breather every once in a while and not overtax them so that, if you need to make a late run, they won't be already be too tired from being overplayed early on because the bench can't score. They can't just score in the whorehouse, to say the least. So, better bench play, taking care of the damn ball, and one or two of your starters finally stepping the fuck up, and those are the recipe. That's the recipe that you need to get over this loss and march on forward to a productive and better season.
Next question.
Question number 3, do we see a long winning streak for the Spartans down the road? I possibly doubt it with the Hawkeyes coming into Breslin Center next week.
That's going to be the tricky one, and you can't really rule out the Michigan game, the Michigan rematch, because I'm sure there's going to be a team looking out for their own style of event, so I can't really rule that out either. So it'll be difficult, to say the least.
Yep, we'll see what happens.
Next question.
Question number 4, is there a greater possibility that the Pistons decline center Aron Baynes' option for next year?
Is there a greater option? Is there a greater chance, rather?
There might.
Oh, it depends. Like I say, if Boban Marjanovic gets more chance to shine and improves his work, then yes, I would say by all means, and use that to get you a much-needed backup shooting guard, backup guard that can shoot better threes, because KCP is your only three-point shooter, reliable three-point shooter, and we saw what happened to their offense even more once he went down. So, if that's the case, I'll never take that Baynes money and put it towards getting another guard that can shoot some threes.
Yeah, I have to agree. Stan Van Gundy needs to start using his head, using the bench better.
Next question.
Question number 5, finally. Are the chances for the Red Wings selling come the forthcoming NHL trade deadline higher than they were previously?
I really don't know. I would love to say yes, but I believe Ken Holland is going to be stubborn and ignorant to a fault. And I doubt he's really, unless he gets a personal edict from Chris Illich or whatnot and say, do this, I doubt that's going to happen. You have some type of inkling that the Tigers were probably going to be doing it. I think that's because Dave DeBoski has much more damn sense than Ken Holland. Holland is too selfish and stupid to realize that.
That's true. So that's our 5 question segment. For all the listeners and fans out there, if you want to answer those questions, just replay the episode and answer them in the comment bank below this episode. That wraps up the milestone episode 250 of Spreaker's feed on the Michigan Sports Truth. Ed, I'll talk to you again next week on episode 251.
Yep. So enjoy your weekend, Taylor. Enjoy your weekend, everybody else. Enjoy the Super Bowl, the commercials, the games, and plenty of food. And hope to see you all back here next week.
Yep. I want the audience's take. Patriots or Falcons? We're going to sign off. But before we do, we want to remind everyone that to share this podcast and our entire podcast on social media, have their friends share that as well. And follow me on Spreaker as Taylor Phillips online at Spreaker.com, because I want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth podcast is in search of local advertising sponsors. If anyone has a business that's interested in sponsoring this program, you can follow Sports Radio Detroit on Twitter at Sports Radio DET, at Sports Radio Det, and send them a direct message or email them at sportsradiodetroit.com in the contact section. Also, like their Facebook page and join their Facebook group. And finally, find their podcast available on iTunes and Podbean. For Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow us on Twitter at DT2Phillips with 2 L's and at EdSmith313. And like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join our Facebook group with the same name. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks very much for listening, and TTFN, ta-ta for now.
Bon appétit.